Hey, it's Andrew Huang, and in this video I want to share with you this tool that I've been using for a little while that I really love. Speeds a lot of things up for me, and it's really fun, very inspiring. I have been using this for over a year, but Splice actually reached out and wanted to sponsor something with it. This tool used to just be an app called Koso, which I jumped on as soon as it was released, and it gave me a lot of ideas, and a couple of those I actually have brought to release. But now they've really leveled it up, and it's on their desktop app, and it's called Create Mode. In this mode, you create stacks, and that's basically a collection of splice loops that the platform has determined through AI fit well together. And you can actually filter it by a few different genres, or you can put it on no filter and just see what you get. But there's a few that I really like let's go to hip hop. Already a vibe, right? So I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of loops there are on Splice, but it's pulling ones that go together and that fit certain genres. You can see there are these different categories, and if you hover over an empty slot, you can choose one to add. Let's throw in a guitar. We can solo it. We can mute anything. We can delete stuff that we don't like. You can adjust the volume of any loop. And you can even change the BPM of the whole thing. And of course, you can shuffle to another loop in the same instrument category. So it's like a little Splice optimized DAW, and you can start from any loop you want on Splice. You don't have to just go with whatever it generates for you on this page. If I search Splice for a drum break. Okay, I like this one. Any loop on Splice that's long enough now has this extra button on it. So I'm gonna click that for this loop that I found that I like, that I wanna work with. And now it's built me a little stack over here. It's added a couple things in, but let's pick a style. I like lo-fi wave. What about soulful beats? Yeah, I mean, that's nice. Let's try another soulful beat. And I will say, I am anticipating some backlash about this type of a tool because maybe it makes things too easy, or maybe it feels like, you know, the music producer doesn't have actual authorship over any of this. To which I'd say, I mean, there are so many different approaches to music. Sampling has been with us for decades. Sometimes people use massive songs that they don't even try to disguise in the creation of a new song. We've got some entire subgenres based around a single drum break. This is just an additional tool that you have at your disposal to use, you know, whether it's for inspiration, whether it's for starting a track, and you can engage with it to whatever level you want, including if you think this is cheating, you don't have to use it, and that's free. So let's make a beat with it today. I actually was looking at some stuff that was interesting right on the homepage of Splice right now. These three over here are looking nice to me today. Obviously, Decap is the man. Let's see what kind of loops we have here. Whoa. Great pocket. Let's head over to Vintage Vibes. What do we have here? Oh, this is nice. Let's start from this little like chill chord progression with a vocal on it. Nice. And do you hear, it's actually pitch shifting the samples with chord progressions following along too. Let's head over to pocket drums. I like this. Switch a few of these out. Glad we explored that. I'm going back to decap. Let's go with this. Ooh. Yeah, there's something to this. What am I hearing? That loop is really cool. Although this is adding something. All right, I'm gonna mute those though. Add some other stuff. So one way I actually find myself working with Create is not building up a full stack that all necessarily goes together, but I'm finding different things that are inspiring to me that maybe could layer up or maybe could be different sections of the same track. And then I also just have my own things that I prefer to do on my own, like bass, for instance. I'll usually probably play my own bass rather than using a bass loop, and that's just like my own preference and workflow. And also usually, as I'm about to show you, I'll take a lot of these and kind of make them my own, either by how I manipulate them or just replacing them, playing my own stuff that, kind of bottles that vibe. It's funny because a lot of the time I'll be creating and I'll be like playing something, and then after I've played it, I'm trying to like put effects on it or figure out how I can chop it up to get to a vibe. And this is almost the reverse. This is showing you a vibe, and then I'm like, okay, I can take that feeling and let it affect how I play and what I play, and come up with a part that is all my own based on this sample. But anyway, check this out. I'm happy with the loops I've pulled here. Generates an automatic name for me. Let's go with that today. Save. That's gonna save over here in my library, but also we can export it to Ableton Studio One. You can just grab the stems, or you can get the original samples, like without any of the pitch shift or beat timing correction. And I believe they're adding more DAWs to this as well. So let's export an Ableton Live project. It's telling me I gotta use 8 credits because none of these loops are ones I've downloaded before. So cool, I think I can afford it. And now this zip file just pops up in front of me and we can open it in Ableton. Sounds the exact same. It's even taken into account what I had muted in the app. Also, by the way, my Ableton is white right now and I was using Splice in light mode because I'm using my computer to light me today, just to see how that goes. You know, I want the blue, but I don't want my face to be blue. This is definitely a vibe. This to me feels like a B section. It's kind of open. Oh yeah, this is beautiful too. And then we had vocals, which is just a nice little pad bed kind of thing. All right, so first things first, I'm going to pull this drum loop out of the group. Let's rename this. This is gonna be the sidechain bus. Sidechain it to the drums. It feels a little slow actually. I wanna bump this up. So I'm feeling 2 kind of, maybe 3 main sections. We group them like this. And then what was this thing that I wasn't sure about? Yeah, that might sneak in somewhere, but okay. I think we've got a few different sections. I'm gonna put in some of my own bass, and then I think too, this loop, this piano, as much as I like it, I wanna capture my own thing that will borrow, again, from the vibe without necessarily the exact same notes. And it's also, for me, I feel like too short of a loop. Like I want it to develop into some other things, but cool. Let's just get bass in. Change the whole key of this to sit better with the subs. All of you get pitch shifted. All right, you know what I'm feeling? There's actually a few of these loops that I just want to do my own version of. Let's play some stuff into this. So when I'm approaching this kind of thing, like recreating a sample, it's so much about word of the day, vibe. I used to be hired to do a lot of sound alikes, like, wanting the vibe of a famous song, but done in a far enough removed way that there would be no copyright issues with doing something where you could clearly tell there was the reference there, but we're not using, the same notes. Well, I guess that's all it comes down to is the same notes. The things that can and can't be copywritten are weird. Okay, let's see what we can come up with. Okay, buddy. All right, let's compare what I played on the Rhodes with that original piano loop, which honestly, the original piano loop sounds like it's actually a Rhodes, not a piano. Sounds like it's got a really fast but subtle tremolo on it. We need some waviness on my Rhodes to get it in that world. There's also like a little crunchiness to it. Fast tremolo, some distortion. Let's try it out. Really feels like the original thing has RC20 on it. Like maybe they got that flavor some other way, but it just feels like it's this. Yeah, some drift is nice. And see, this is what I mean. Like, I wouldn't necessarily have put that effect on this piano. I might have, if I just came up with this Rhodes part on my own, I might have just said, yeah, I'm happy with that sound. It's beautiful, it's Rhodes. But just having this idea from this other loop, not only of the type of thing I could play, but the type of effects that could be on it that take it to a certain place that I might not have considered. Yeah, that's great. Let's start with this, build to this, and diminished. And just jamming on the Rhodes, I came up with yet another section that could be a possibility for this beat. Don't know if I'll keep it. It's a little more driving, but I really like it. So, yeah, just extra ideas. Not a bad thing. Okay, let's look at this synth. I like rhythmically where it's at. I like that little bit of glide to this sound. But in terms of like the sound quality, now that I've pitch shifted it a bunch and where that's making the tone sit, I want something a little more bright, I think. Maybe that rhythm comes from the delay rather than the notes constantly playing that rhythm. Oh, maybe it's like a 3 against 4 kind of thing. Yeah, this is interesting. Put some transit on this. To up the contrast here though, I think I'm gonna throw some RC20 on this, just to get it feeling even different from the main beat, which is really like nice and clean and crisp. Just make this one loop sound really dusty and old. And we need to just squash that. Or is it tape noise? Automate that on for those 2 transitions so we don't have tape the whole time. I think this is one area where it's actually so great to work with loops because you are literally pulling from something in a completely different world. You didn't cook it up on the same day, completely different instruments. In the case of a loop, it's coming from a different mind. And you just get to drop it in as this complete contrast and then flip it back to your main beat. Love that. You can even do this with your own projects. Like I tag all of my stuff by tempo so that if I want, I can pull something that I made on a different day, even years ago, and have it fit in a moment where, I want that contrast. Maybe we'll do some variations in the bass line now. Little fills, little dropouts. Transit on there for a couple more transitions. So So those are some of my approaches when working with Splice Create. Thanks again to Splice for sponsoring this video. Check out this Create mode. If you are a Splice subscriber, you already have access to it. It's just part of the platform. Like I said, I've been using this since the earliest version when it was just a little app and you couldn't export stuff as easily. And I mean, I just love it. I love being able to try stuff out so quickly and come up with stuff that you wouldn't have done on your own. And I think this is just a great use of AI as well. You know, it's still all human-made loops, and these are loops that we would be browsing anyway. You know, a lot of us producers are going on Splice trying to find that sound that we can plug into our project or to start a project with even. And this is just something that, of course, a machine would be better at than a person. Like I, you know, will want to find a certain thing, browse a bunch of stuff. I have to listen to them one at a time, but I can just have Splice pull a handful that it already knows will go together in a certain way. And yeah, it's a cool workflow. Drop a comment, let me know what you thought of this video, and I'll see you next time.